We continue our series on the high seas aboard the Harry S. Truman Aircraft Carrier. It's really an 1,100-foot-long floating city that, because of its two nuclear reactors, can cruise along at 35 miles an hour. Imagine that. And as amazing as this ship is, it's really the brave men and women who bring her to life. There are few things more impressive or more demanding than flight ops on the Harry S. Truman Aircraft Carrier. When I landed on the carrier somewhere in the Atlantic, the Truman had already been at sea 2 weeks, going through the Navy's version of training camp.
Well, right now, almost 5,400 men and women from Harry S. Truman, from Carrier Air Wing 1, Destroyer Squadron 28, and Carrier Strike Group 8 are working 24 hours a day to hone their combat skills and prepare for whatever missions the nation assigns us.
After spending 24 hours on the ship, I can tell you these men and women work so hard. It's pretty much work, eat, and sleep, and then do it all over again. And the first thing you can't help but notice is how young most of them are.
Almost 40% 21 years old or younger. So these are young men and women that come from every walk of life, all 50 states, and even some other countries in the world. And the way we attempt to instill that skill set or combat capability is through a continuum of training. And it starts with individual skill sets for a sailor in the rate. We bring them together as teams on board the ship, and we practice those team requirements or team skills. And then we work ultimately to integrate that to the larger picture with all the other entities on board and with external assets.
Whether the sailors work in the wheel and tire shop, whether they cook food, steer the ship, manage flight operations, work the flight deck, or fly the jets and helos, they all have value and purpose and an enormous amount of responsibility.
These young men and women on board this ship every day in an unforgiving environment in relatively austere conditions show up when called and work all day to make sure that they help the teammates that we have from other services to maintain our way of life and preserve and protect the freedoms that every American holds dear.
And you can thank Arizona sailors Stefan Roberson, Ryan Jafar, Devin Keller, Anthony Nomingos, Madison Brannon, Destin Evans, and so many more I didn't have the pleasure to meet. The carrier's top officers say your tax dollars are being well spent, and this hard work makes these men and women ready to answer the call.
It's our nation's finest young men and women who are out here, and I think all of us owe them a responsibility to ensure that they are equipped and trained properly to be able to execute in combat. And I will tell you right now, as the commanding officer of an aircraft carrier, capital ship of the greatest Navy that has ever existed in the history of the world, we have all of the tools and all of the resources we need to do that.
For me, after 29 years, I remain humble. And to just see the greatness of these young men and women as they bring their backgrounds to this Navy and come together as one team. They know that today is going to be surely better than yesterday, and there's always a tomorrow that should be a little bit better than today. So we're proud of them. We're glad that they're here and they're going to win.
We sure are proud of them. So coming up at 8:10, I'm going to introduce you to another Arizona sailor from the Valley who's always thought about joining the military, and is he ever glad that he did?